Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And I can't help but laugh at this. Yeah, I tell you what, Hamza Yousaf and the rest of the SNP will be spitting into their porridge this morning because once again, the UK government down in Westminster is going to override SNP policy and tell them no, you can't do it because, like everything else, it's been ill thought out, it's bad, it won't work, and you're all a bunch of morons. I added that last bit. But effectively, that's what it is. Having overridden the SNP on the gender bill, which now the SNP are going to take the UK government to court and lose. See that video I've just done this morning. And they've overridden them, of course, on the DRS. And again, they're moaning about that because it was such an ill thought out idea. And now the government are going to override them on the HPMAs. This is the highly protected marine areas. Because what they're saying is, they haven't done the homework. They haven't done enough. The SNP are trying to impose this, but they haven't even said what areas they want to impose it in. They're just sort of making a bland 10%, but they haven't said where. And they need to target this and they need to do impact statements and all this. They haven't done any of that. And so the UK government says, don't worry, we've already got one in the pipeline that's going to be done. We've identified the areas. We've done all the groundwork. You don't have to worry yourselves. We've got it covered. I'm on it, they'll say. As Sturgeon used to say. Well, there you go. And so once again, SNP policy has been overridden because what they're doing is already in the pipeline from the UK government. And the difference is the UK government basically have done a lot more work on it and have looked at everything involved. Not like the SNP who just want to get it out, be first. Look at us, we're virtuous. We'll destroy our own fishing industry. But at least then people who don't really matter will think that we're wonderful. What a bunch of clowns these people truly are. Well, of course, they're probably going to have to fight that as well. How many court cases are the SNP going to bring against Westminster? Who knows? I think there'll be more. We'll have a look at this article and see why, even now, another SNP failure is on the cards. Here goes. So, SNP could be forced to scale back fishing ban plans by Westminster. This was only published this morning, so it is quite fresh off. So SNP ministers may be forced to scale back the controversial plans to ban fishing in 1/10 of Scottish waters, amid suggestion the UK government could refuse permission for the full rollout of the proposals. The Scottish government has held its initial consultation on plans to designate 10% of the Scottish inshore and outshore waters as highly protected marine areas, HPMAs, in a bid to tackle the climate crisis and help restore marine habitats. And I'm sure it's a very worthy idea in principle. In practice, of course, you'll be destroying whole communities, whole industries. It won't actually do much for the climate, if anything at all. You've not provided any details. You've not done any work. You know, there's no backup. There's no impact statements. These people are just coming up with bland, vague ideas written on the back of an envelope after a night on the gin at some backstreet pub in Edinburgh. It's the only reason that these things even come up, isn't it? Under the plans, no human activity, including fishing, will be allowed to take place in the HPMAs. But in order to implement the legislation in full, SNP ministers will require the permission of the UK government. And Prime Minister Rishi Sunak has already warned against the scheme, describing the Scottish government's plans as a poorly thought out idea. Like so much of what they come up with. There's no good ideas in the SNP. The only ideas they ever have are the ones that, because this one as well, are the ones from the Greens. The SNP don't have any ideas of their own. And of course they just nab all the ones from the Greens and implement them as their policy. The trouble is the Greens, and unbelievable as this sounds, are even more stupid than the SNP. You couldn't make it up, honestly. Anyway. The UK government is bringing forward its own HPMA proposals and has identified 3 initial zones, while environmental campaigners have called on ministers to go further in rolling out the plans. But the environmental campaigners also want to destroy communities and industry and don't want anyone to have any kind of income. They want them all to be miserable, poverty-stricken, poor, and at the absolute mercy of the morons who join these environmental groups. A DEFRA source told the Herald that it was unlikely that the UK government will approve the plans, given the way the SNP has gone about business with fishermen in Scotland. Well, they've shown the Scottish fishing industry complete disregard, the contempt even, beyond disregard, even contemptuousness. They just overwriting them. They listen, oh yes, we hear your concerns. while they're filling in their Sudoku or whatever they're doing, because they're not listening. They added, "We are bringing forward sensible plans, but the Scottish Government's plans could be seen as overambitious with their 10% target, before knowing where these zones can or should be designated." Yeah, they just come up with a figure at the top there. I would just say 10%. Why? What's the scientific reason for that? Why 10%? Why not 9%? Why not 11%? Why not that particular area? Because they don't know what they're talking about. They haven't got a clue. They shouldn't be so sure that they will reach that threshold, given that the entire proposal does not sit within devolved competence. But another UK government insider acknowledged that officials and ministers were not anywhere near a decision being made on whether to approve or essentially block the plans. So it's going to be a long way ahead anyway, because we all know that the wheels of government grind exceedingly slowly. But especially when the SNP is concerned, because they know all their ideas are mad, bad and awful, and so they have to slow it down to give everyone a chance to laugh at them and ridicule them. It is thought that the discussions between the UK and Scottish governments have so far been largely in general terms rather than any specifics, and the Scottish government's consultation on the plans acknowledges that Holyrood does not have the necessary legal powers to designate and protect HPMAs. The document adds that the intention is to deliver the necessary legislative and management framework for the HPMAs in both Scottish inshore and offshore waters. So basically they're wasting time, effort and money pushing all these proposals ahead, making these big announcements. Look at us, we're being virtuous, we're being wonderful, we're saving the world. They don't have the authority to do it. This is the SNP all the way through though, isn't it? Quick, get something out there, make it sound like we're doing something, even though we're not doing something, For the inshore region, up to 12 nautical miles from the coast, devolved powers allow for HPMAs to be implemented with legislation at Holyrood. But the paper admits that for Scottish offshore region, beyond 12 nautical miles, out to the outer limits of the UK continental shelf, powers over the marine environment are currently reserved to the UK government. So basically, Scotland can do it like with coastal waters, but it can't go into the larger, inter-country waters. That's a UK government matter. So anyway, it adds, "We are seeking agreement from the UK government to provide for the equivalent powers for Scottish ministers to designate HPMAs in Scottish offshore waters." I don't think the British government will give Scottish government that amount of power over such a large area, over what would be national security issues, food security, but also patrols. I mean, they're saying, oh, no human activity. But sometimes you may need to send the Navy in there. So, yeah, I mean, you can't give up matters of national importance to the likes of the SNP. You wouldn't give the matters of national security and the armed forces up to a parish council. So why would you give this kind of thing up to the SNP, who are filled with morons? Anyway, the Scottish Liberal Democrats Rural Affairs spokesman and Shetland MSP Beatrice Wishart said, "It's hardly surprising that the Scottish Government could face serious challenges in taking this forward. So far, ministers have paid little to no regard as to how their rigid plans would impact coastal and island communities. They failed to consult with the communities before they brought the proposals forward. No wonder there is so much vehement opposition. And moving forward, the UK and Scottish governments must work together with communities to find fair solutions. We need policies that are proportionate and evidence-based." Well, that's the trouble. The SNP cannot afford to have evidence-based because the evidence isn't there. They know that, and that's why they have to sneak this stuff in all the time. Because if it was to be evidence-based, nothing they do would happen because everything would be against them. Anyway, the Scottish Conservative Shadow Rural Affairs Secretary Rachel Hammerfield added, "The SNP Green Government's HPMA proposals are reckless and threaten to destroy many of our coastal communities. They have completely failed to engage with them and our fishing sector. It's time they urgently went back to the drawing board and scrapped their current plans." And basically, that's what's going to have to happen. Even if they have got the legal right to impose these on coastal waters, they're going to be fought every inch of the way. It's going to be court case after court case. There'll be every community up in arms about this. The whole industry will go. There will be a lot of people, and there'll be SNP members, and this is the thing, there's going to be SNP members who are members for coastal and fishing communities, and they need to consider this. Do they want to stick with the party and go push this and then know that come the next election they're out of a job, or do they want to fight the party and risk losing it at the vote? It's a very difficult decision, and there's a lot of MPs SNP MPs and MSPs that are going to be put in a very difficult position over this because it is such a bad idea. But hey, it is by your decisions that you are judged. And I'm coming up. So there we are, yet another fail. Yet another thing that the UK government is overriding the SNP on. Because the SNP know full well in advance of these things that it isn't going to happen, that the Westminster government are going to override them. And they keep doing it so that it gives them more ammunition. And it's like saying, oh look, we were overridden on this, overridden on this, overridden on this. This is why we want and need independence. But it won't wash. Because people aren't seeing the UK government removing powers from Scotland. They're seeing, in many cases, the UK government saving the Scottish people from the SNP and its mad ideas. And so it's going to backfire on them spectacularly, I think. And if these coastal communities are sitting there and going, well, thank God for for Westminster. If the SNP had their way, we'd all be out of a job and this town would die. So, yeah, that's, I think, what's happening. Anyway, that's enough of that. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, ring the bell, leave a like, leave a comment, please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well, go fishing, and goodbye.